I'm Joanne Law, Director of Studies for Mediation Institute and co-founder of Interact Support. I'm on a mission to prevent violence by training and supporting dispute resolution practitioners. Mediation Musings is a series of conversations with mediators and for mediators. So if you're interested in dispute resolution, follow the channel. We're intending to update new recordings each week. Enjoy.
Maybe we'll say something good.
Well, that's been my experience. I'm not trying to script these things, really just see what comes out. I'm finding them really interesting. I hope others will as well.
Well, I may have trouble getting the accent a couple of times, but I'll do my best.
And with regards to accent, I lived in Chile in South America for a while and taught English, and when people thought they were getting quite good at English, they'd throw in an Australian. So I know our accent is more difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure they were.
Today I'm talking with Paul Rajkowski.
And had done some judging in university competitions, had done mediations ourselves, each of us. So we've had a full time, and we decided to retire. I'm doing this, as you see on LinkedIn, and now talking with you. And I have other articles that have been on mediate.com, and I've had some articles, at least one, published in England. And so I just talk about what I believe is the proper process for mediation and for the parties involved. And I'm enjoying it. I'm working on a book right now that has a different perspective than the way we write now and the things we talk about. So
okay, well
that'll come out.
When are you planning to get that out?
Oh, well, it's going to be one of these self-published because I'm a nobody when it comes to writing. People know me through LinkedIn or some other place, but for a book, I'm going to self-publish it, and it's going to be a handbook.
Okay.
And it's going to be inexpensive.
I
want people to. It is. I want people to get a grasp of what their part is in all the mediation, and so once they understand what they should do, the lawyer's job is easier. The mediator's job is so much easier, and progress should go real well in future mediations.
Okay.
But we're both listening and talking, and we've got great ideas that we want to get out. I'm sure you have plenty of them. So between the two of us, we're going to muddle along.
Absolutely. It's just like life or mediation. So I was really interested because so you're writing it for people that are using mediation. Is that? Did I pick that up correctly?
Yeah, I want lawyers to have it. I want lawyers to have it so that everything they've learned in law school, the court system, will help them, but they'll have a guide on how to participate in mediation.
Yeah,
and I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So I know you've done training, and I train mediators at Mediation Institute, and with the lawyers, I often talk about they need to do a quarter turn on their skill set if they're mediating rather than advocating. So
Yeah, I hear you, but I'd go a full 180 degrees.
Oh, yep. In some
Well,
cases, yes, there's a fair bit of unlearning.
yeah, well, several years ago, back in the 80s, a couple of people wrote a book called Mediation, and they talked about what the lawyer's role would be in mediation. And it would not be speaking or aggressive or representing. They were there to counsel their client and let their client do all the talking and self-determine what the outcome would be.
Yep.
And I got onto that. We taught it for a long time. It used to be fun. The lawyers would come in, and we would ask each individual person to identify themselves, what was their current job, or what were they interested in mediation. And all the lawyers would say, well, I've been in 100, I've been in 200 mediations. I pretty much know what goes on. And therefore, I just want my certificate because I want to do mediation. Well, in truth, when the training was over, they'd be scratching their head, wondering why they were thinking of mediation as an offshoot of a legal process versus a really structured process that benefited their clients. And so I start writing about it, and you saw something there. And maybe you have some more questions or a lot of questions, but I have to stop talking every once in a while so that you can talk.
Absolutely.
I get carried. Joanne, I get carried away, believe me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's why I approached you to have this chat, because I did see the passion that you've got for the industry and the process coming through in some of the conversations in those big LinkedIn groups.
Well, thank you.
I think there's probably a bit of a difference in what's happening in the US. I'm getting a feel that there's a lot of lawyer-led or lawyer-inclusive mediation happening. Would that be?
Well, yes, there is. But I tell you, I think it's the same because I took the time to go on YouTube and search for mediation videos. And lo and behold, there's a video from Australia.
Okay. Yeah.
It has to do with family mediation.
Yes.
I didn't write the names down, but Watt was the judge that approved all of it and set things up, I guess. But I watched co-mediation, which I really, really believe in. But I watched a lot of things that, of course, are very similar to what goes on in the States. And it's very interesting. There's neutrality amongst the co-mediators. Really, you should not, if you're in co-mediation, you should not take control of the mediation. And the first thing that happened was one mediator took control, and that it showed itself by introducing the other mediator. You're really not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You say, I'm John Doe, and the woman, if it's and that's you, it should be a woman, is Jane Doe, but she introduces herself.
Yeah.
They don't do, well, here, this is my partner, Jane Doe. It doesn't work that way. And so I was sort of surprised.
It is an important insight how those seemingly minor things actually do shift the power dynamic in the room.
If you were going to do a statistic I would say, let's say the meeting was 100%. Who talked the most? 60 to 70% were the mediators. 5% were the parties, and the rest of it was lawyers.
Ooh.
And so, if you can go on YouTube and find it, you'll see what I'm talking about. What lawyers do, and I'm sorry to be on Australia's case at this point, but I saw something that was interesting, which didn't give the parties a benefit of self-determination. So I comment on it, but ask me more, please. I'm getting carried away, Joanne. And
I certainly share your concerns around that style of mediation, because I think it does, it diminishes or even prevents client self-determination, because they're expected and to defer to the wisdom of their lawyers, if you want to put it that way. I guess the area that I certainly focus on and where training is more the facilitative style of mediation, where it's not lawyer inclusive at all. People are encouraged during the pre-mediation process to get advice, to understand their rights and obligations, but it's the mediator and the two parties in the process.
Joanne, I don't know you, but I now love you. Because you said the things that I really believe in.
Yeah.
It's the mediator. I wrote an article maybe a year or so ago that was called "The Invisible Man," and it was the mediator who worked in such a way that the parties got to their solution and believed that they did it themselves.
Yeah.
Well, that's the ultimate goal, is for the parties to be convinced that they did all the work, they're satisfied, and they'll be happy.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're an excellent mediator. And I'll bet you're an excellent mediator just from what you just told me.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, that certainly is, for me, a really good measure of an excellent mediator. A mediation where you ask the parties, well, what did the mediator do? Oh, I don't think they did anything much, even though they came into the process barely able to talk, and by the end of it, the mediators sort of sitting back like they're watching tennis.
Well, let me tell you, there was a time when we wouldn't let the lawyers sit at the table.
Yeah.
They'd have to sit back from the table and to the side of their client, and let the client do all the talking. And if they wanted to interject, they touched the client, said something to the client, and then the client repeated it to the table. So that you totally maintained party participation. Nobody spoke for them at all. They were told maybe what to say. Their lawyer sometimes would caucus with them, bring them back, and then the party would do the discussion or make the statements or make a point or create an option or something that was relevant to the process of the mediation. So it was a learning experience for everybody, believe me. Even the guys with big, really.
I can imagine. I can imagine some.
Well, there are lawyers that are really hard-nosed and difficult, and they want to speak. And of course, that's not what should happen. But when you train them and you get them to be aware, we one time had a retired judge, and he said, I now realize that the parties in mediation are the most important people in the room. And the rest of us are there, but who's got the conflict? Who has?
That's actually quite disturbing to me. That was something that he had to come, or he or she had to come to a realization about. To me, it's so obvious. You know, they're making decisions about their lives, whether it's their business or their relationship with their neighbour or their financial or settlement, or even more so the care of their children. You know, it's their lives. Whatever professional role we come in for such a short time.
Oh, I know I'm not the interviewer, but it says on your profile that you are a lawyer.
No, I'm actually not. My name is Law. Yeah, I get that a lot. It's quite good. By birth, I have an honorary law degree. My husband's a lawyer, but yeah, he's the lawyer. I'm the law.
Well, there's too many lawyers anyway. It's the mediators that will be important.
Yeah, so I come. So my background, I come as a coaching and education and that sort of thing. So all of my development is around empowering people. So it just, for me, in mediation, it's a natural thing that I'd be seeking to empower the clients, and that's what I try and train in our courses as well.
I bet you're one of the few.
Look, there's a diversity in practice, and so look, some clients aren't empowered, and they're not going to be empowered in a short time that some decisions need to be made, and they need to be, supported more so, and that's facilitated as well in I suppose the diversity in practice, but where possible. I guess the ideal is that we provide an environment where people can self-determine. It almost sounds like you feel there's been a bit of an erosion from the ideals of mediation and self-determination, or am I overreaching there?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I have an article coming out, I believe it's next week, at mediate.com. And I talk about war and what's happening in mediation. You saw some of the responses about one size does not fit all. Well, that's just an ego-driven response, because there is no one size. There's just a process and a structure for mediation. The people have the freedom within that structure to be as creative and dynamic thinking as possible. They don't realize it all the time. They don't realize it. And what I look for a mediator to do is to, in the opening comments, is to make a point that these two people, or whatever it is, are very, very important to the agreement being achieved. And everything will be done to make them fill an environment that they can speak freely to each other. When I was mediating, I would tell people, I'm sort of like a referee. If you guys start punching too hard, then I call a timeout. And I ask, would you let me call a timeout?
Yeah.
So say they're yelling and screaming and there's a whole bunch of anger starting to get into the mediation. I would actually stop them. Let's take a break, get a drink of water, have a cup of coffee, and come back and let's talk about how the both of you can, what your ideas are on getting to a solution. And I always went with the flip charts. And if things got out of hand, a power move in mediation is for the mediator to stand up.
Yeah.
When people stand up at a table, they become the object, and they have the power, so to speak, to guide the process. People are looking up to them. And so I'd get up and they would stop talking.
Mm.
And I'd say, well, let's look at all these options that you put up. What are some other options that appeal to you? Or do you see any combinations of options that might work for you? And then they would settle down and talk a little more, and we'd move along. Sometimes people, when they're talking, that they say they want to make a point, but they don't really, if somebody said to the boss, and let's say it's a harassment case or something like that, and somebody said to the boss, you're always on my case. Why can't you just let me do? And the boss would look, and the mediator might jump in and say, let me reframe that if you don't mind. So what you're saying is you want autonomy to be able to get the work done and be on time with it. Mm-hmm. And the party would say, yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So, reframing that would work. I didn't put a new idea in their head. I just clarified their idea so that they could continue to speak to each other.
Absolutely, and the
that
other person can hear. It does, and skills at reframing and helping people to change their perspective on things is. I think it's a really important skill that mediators need to develop and practice.
One of the things, people tend to, can't think of the word, but they make it bigger than it is, and so they'll say, she always.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Did this. She
absolutely.
Always.
Generalize.
Right? You always hear always.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So my response, even though I'm looking to clarify. So you said she always does this. Can you give me an idea when the last time was? And let them try to explain. Let them try to explain their way better or out of it.
Yeah, or realize I can't remember, but it feels like always.
Yeah. Because people exaggerate. Like that's the word I was wanting. Exaggerate. And so you can really tone things down by having them explain their exaggeration.
Yeah.
And then the process moves on. And in family court, that's one of the saddest things, because I didn't see in the video I watched that there was a real concern for what the children might. Well, let me put it this way. When parents are arguing, a good question is, so how do you see your daughter or your children growing up? And you ask them, both of them, the same question. And then you start to put on a board, on the flip chart, well, they should have a good education. They should have friends. They should be religious if that's what they do.
Yeah.
And maybe they should be in sports, or maybe they should learn to play an instrument. I'd like to see my son play an instrument, one of them might say.
Yeah.
But you see what happens is you're getting these people to work together.
Yeah. To
come up with a solution. So once you get them thinking that way, then it's all theirs. You just sit back and you listen and you take notes, and if there's a stumbling block.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's one of the things I have in the back of my mind when I'm mediating as well. So separate the people from the problem, because they generally come in feeling that the other person's the problem.
Absolutely, Joanne. That's absolutely. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
Not my fault.
It's all because of that other person. Horrible, stupid, the devil, whatever.
That's right, the devil. One of the problems with mediation is that we talk about compassion, empathy, the importance of it, but it isn't done. I've observed mediations where it's never come up. There's never been a validation of what somebody was feeling or saying. And really, when you can validate somebody who has expressed an emotion, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
You're helping that person get steadied, become steady, become involved deeper into the mediation. And once they start talking about what they need, then, we're all trapped with what we want, what the facts are, what we're interested in. And that's fine. Those are words, but in the heart is what they need.
Yeah.
And when that need is expressed, then golly, the mediation moves forward.
Yeah.
And the mediator is aware of all that and is inclined to be that way. Women are better at it than men. Believe it, I believe.
Yeah. Look,
they are more empathetic.
Bit of a generalization, I suppose, but yeah, it can be it can be the case, and I think, or certainly from my experience, is that if people don't have their strong emotions acknowledged, they're just going to keep ramping up until they lose control of them completely, and then your mediation's gone off track. But it's, I guess it's part of it's educating the other person that acknowledging doesn't mean agreeing. And that's generally, I find, the stumbling block that people have with empathy is they think that, acknowledging someone's feeling means that they agree that they're justified or whatever. So it'll weaken my case or weaken my position. That's not the case at all.
That's right. You can speak of it from a neutral position, and but you got to be equal and fair to the people in the mediation, and do it for both if it comes up. But
yeah,
I don't see it as a negative.
No, I don't. I guess the only thing is if the mediator becomes aligned, so if they associate with the one of the parties and their emotions, that can be pretty negative. But
oh yeah, and sometimes that results in a caucus.
Yeah.
Where you just go out in the hall. Really, you don't even have to keep them separated. You just say, what benefits are you getting from the way you're acting right now?
Yeah.
And what ideas are you projecting to the other side, who you want to agree with you, and let them explain it.
Yeah.
In private, so that they don't lose face.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we call them private sessions in our training, but I'm pretty much teaching people to do that, to have some sort of check-in with clients in any mediation. And I guess that came for me from one of my early mediations. I thought it was going swimmingly. Everything's fantastic, and they're all agreeing, and suddenly the wife stands up and wants to storm out, and I'm like, what on earth happened? So I said, you're perfectly, this is voluntary, you can leave if you'd like, but I'd really like to have a quick chat with you. And she agreed, and it was just all going too quick, and she was getting anxious, and but she was kind of being a bit accommodating and agreeing, but not really agreeing. So
right, and that'll come out after a while. That will come out.
Oh yeah, but she because she
everybody agrees.
Yeah, absolutely. But because she wasn't good at speaking up, she was appearing to me to be, totally on board.
Yeah.
So right. Yeah, that privacy or giving them an opportunity to say something without losing face is also a really important part of self-determination, I guess, because you've got those eddies of power and patterns in relationships.
There's a lot of people write about how to be a better mediator and what to do, how to ask questions, what to do about impasse, all those kinds of things. If I had the platform, I would suggest that mediators, to become a master of their profession, really ignore all of that.
Yeah.
Read books that are not in the mediation world. Read books that talk about fear, talk about making choices, how to master what you're thinking, talk about conflicted personalities, even books on Aikido, where you learn how to control your own self so that you are aware of how to control somebody else.
Yeah.
And when you books like Mediation that were way old books that were relevant to the process, that's the big thing. Good friend of mine is Michael Lang. You know Michael Lang?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know him, but I know of him. We're connected. Yep.
Yeah. He wrote a book, and he's got another one coming out. But we invited him to come speak to our group when we were in the group, and he talked about mindfulness and reflection. Those are really good things to get involved in, because they challenge the mediator to think about their own efforts.
Yeah.
Did I do this? Did I miss an opportunity?
Yeah.
I learned to do that, and
yeah, we're doing a fair bit with reflective practice and encouraging that, because one of the dangers that we have as mediators is, because it's confidential, because it takes place behind closed doors, and certainly if you're not co-mediating, you actually don't have anyone that's giving you a meaningful feedback, because often the clients don't know what to expect.
Well, you can talk about the subject of the conflict without mentioning names or locations, and it becomes a training exercise, really, so that if you sat down to talk with 2 or 3 people and you wanted to reflect on a recent mediation that you did, you could say the whole thing without names.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so
we
do you guys
facilitate.
Do that?
Yeah, we do. We do a monthly peer group supervision. So online, so people dial in and we can talk about case things. But I guess it does need self-awareness, though, because otherwise, our story of what happened it comes through our perceptions. And if we're not self-aware, that client was really difficult and they did, they just wouldn't, do the right thing, rather than thinking, okay, well, where did I not, how did I not prepare? What could I have done to prepare them better? What could I have done to maybe acknowledge that emotion before it got out of, the client's control, or, whatever the issues. But if we're not self-aware, it's really easy to blame the client.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah.
When people, I reflected myself. I would take notes and write down things that right after the mediation. I mean, I'm sitting in a car or something, and writing down some things that are important that I think I need to follow up on myself. Because maybe I failed at something, but then maybe I did something good too. So I want to reflect on all of this.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, because that helps others listening to sort of think, yeah, maybe that's something I could do. And I have seen some research around our brain and memory that kind of indicates that we either need to speak or write down our insights, or they can kind of get lost in the the transition from short-term to long-term memory.
Now we have Cirrus on the phones and the iPads, so you can talk right into them while you're driving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or sitting down with a cup of coffee.
Yep. Yeah. The technology really helps and enables this this type of thing. So no, it's great.
You're mentioning technology, and I'm a believer in mediation not being on the internet, not on screens. I've watched a couple of these in transformative mediation, and I didn't like them. I think you gotta sense the person. You have to sense the emotion. You have to sense where their eyes are going and what they're thinking about, and do it in both. And that's why I like co-mediation, because one of the members will focus on one of the parties and I'll focus on the other side to the other party, and we'll get a feeling of what's going on. Now, for mediators to take caucuses, that's kind of unusual, but sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need to clarify something in your head.
Yeah.
But when two mediators walk out of the room, they're talking about what they're sensing and what these people are gonna try to say about what they need to make this an agreement and make it resolve itself. And once you go back in the room, then you're both aware of what's going on and who saw what, and you can do a better job of mediating. And that's all it is. You want to be the best mediator you can be. You don't want to get involved with speaking more to the parties than the parties are speaking. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We want to, we're trying to facilitate where they're back to being able to talk directly to each other. Something that's been interrupted by whatever the conflict is that they're experiencing. But with the online mediation, that's an area where I don't agree with you, because that's kind of a specialty area for me, and I like it, not necessarily, not because it's better than having people in a room, but it's more accessible. It keeps the cost down, and it makes it possible to mediate when there's safety concerns that. I agree with
that. But tell me something.
Yeah.
What are their hands doing when you're on internet mediation?
Yeah. Look, you're missing some of the cues. You're still getting, you're still getting the visual, like you're seeing their faces and that sort of thing. You're still getting tone of voice. You're getting some of the body language. And so, a mediator
let's let that point go.
Yeah, I guess.
Let that go, because we won't agree.
No, we won't. That's fine. But what I was going to say, one of the students that I trained, who's a really good mediator, is blind. So you can mediate without those visual cues completely if if you're attuned to well enough. But So look, I guess I'm just mindful of time, and we've ranged across quite a few different topics. It seems to me that principle of self-determination, of the neutrality of the mediator in coming into the process, but not being I guess, not being the judge, and just, of facilitating the people's right to choose. Is
Sure.
that something that you think is the most critical thing for a mediator, or
Well,
is it possible to say a most critical?
well, I agree with you. The problem that I see is what can we do to change the people's approach who don't use mediation the way it was intended. Facilitation is the thing. So is there training? Are there luncheon sessions where people speak about it with enthusiasm, or are there writing? There's a guy, Alan Sharlin, from England.
Yeah.
He's in England. And he writes some great stuff. He also has videos there, which I look at once in a while. But it's there's no such thing as impasse. It's the parties talking for themselves. It's the parties agreeing on an agreement. Those are the things that are important, and he's making some effects. We were thinking about, we have public television, and I'm sure that you have public television. And,
we do Channel 31, which is very homemade type television. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I would bet, in fact, here they would. You could go on and produce a program for 30 minutes or an hour that talked about mediation. And those people who, it's a promotion, obviously, but it helps people, every citizen, the businessman, the lawyer, the doctor, whatever, a professional, to listen if they're watching public television, to listen and get ideas, and become confident, because there's a lot of people just are afraid to speak up. They know they're angry and they know there's a problem, but golly, they don't know how to go about it, and that's what lawyers are for, to help them verbalize what they should be looking for and how they should express what their needs are.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the more we can do that. What?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I actually come across that problem where people want to, they actually they want to abdicate their responsibility for solving their problems. They actually want the lawyer, I want to give this problem to you and I want you to fix it. And it's part of that communication is educating people about, well, yes, you can do that, but that's actually probably not going to give you the best outcomes that you could get. Maintaining some control.
Joanne, I don't know that it's the best outcome you could get, but I know it's the one that is going to satisfy you the most. Personally, you are going to feel like you did well, and you're satisfied with the agreement. One of the things that we always saw was that during our training of future mediators, there were always people who had gone to mediation as a party, and they became the people who were the best, because they had poor feelings from experiences and poor experiences that they encountered during mediation.
Yeah,
and they would tell us stories, and so I believe if we can restore the mediation process to what it was intended to be, then we're doing good. And all those people who will get up and have an agreement will walk out and say, I feel good, I did it myself. That is something I had help, and all those lawyers are going to realize that a mediator did a great job, but did not a whole lot, did not make suggestions, did not evaluate, did not do anything but help them move along in their discussions and keep track of their ideas. And so when they got into, we had a case one time where there were 32 options. 32 options. Could you imagine a conflict having that many? Well, 16 apiece if it's equal, right?
Yeah.
So they went back and forth, and they finally decided that what one guy said and what the other one said at the top could be combined. And that's the fruit of it all. You wind up with agreeing because you threw out so many ideas that were yours that you started to come back and rethink and see how they could fit. And as we used to do, is no judgment about the option. Somebody puts up an option, that's it. It's brainstorming time, and there's no, well, I don't like that. And the answer would be, well, if he said sell the house and you don't like that, your option is what? And she would look at you and say, well, don't sell the house. And they'd get the idea of what non-judgmental options are all about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I absolutely
and it
do.
would be fun.
Yeah, and look, when people first come into mediation, they sometimes don't realise that more options is better than less. That it, once you've got a whole lot of options out, people automatically start putting criteria and evaluating and problem solving and coming out with their interests, because they have to sort these options. It's kind of instinctive need to do that. Whereas if you've only got the two proposals, all you're going to have is a positional argument where they try and overpower each other. But
right. I'm in your corner.
Yeah,
if I lived in Australia, I would be in your corner. I'd like to co-mediate with you, really.
It'd be fun, wouldn't it? But
it would, because I believe that co-mediation is going to happen on a bigger extent. It's not the excuse anymore of, well, I can't afford two mediators at $300 an hour or whatever it is. Yeah. It's the case of what the mediators do. If they do enough mediations, they make a living, even if they split one fee.
Yeah.
In our country, we're starting to see half-day sessions, which account for maybe $1,500. And so you can't tell me that mediators won't take $750 a piece for the day and go home.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, it's a good way to work.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And I don't know where there, but I bet they're fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But look, I'm going to have to pull things to a close just for the time that we're allowing for these podcasts. But I just really wanted to thank you once again for coming along and sharing your insights with us. What I'll be doing is when I put the podcast up, I'll create a sort of a page it links to, and I'll if it's okay with you, I'll link to your LinkedIn profile and maybe a couple of your articles on mediate.com if people are interested in finding out a little bit more about sharing. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. I'm wishing you all kinds of success. So I'm happy for you. And pretty much the only thing mediate.com says is make a reference that it's mediate.com, and they let me do anything. So not a
Yeah,
problem.
oh, look, absolutely. What I was thinking was really just to link to the articles so people can go to mediate.com and
Sure,
it's
that works.
You know, I think everyone should
Well, let me
subscribe anyway because they, you know, it has
ask you.
fabulous articles there. Yeah,
It's a newspaper.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you.
Yep.
Did we cover the things that you wanted covered, or did I talk too much and miss some points that you wanted me to make, or you wanted to make?
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is really about hearing your voice. So it's, you know, I'm like a mediator. My job here is just to facilitate and keep the conversation going. So
There you go.
Because I kind of am a mediator. So
Well,
yeah, it's not a.
Well, I hope you find something. I hope you find something of value that you can really use.
Yeah.
As I say, I ramble on.
No, I'm sure that there'll be insights there that people will be. I know some of the people that'll be listening, and they'll be busily scribbling away as you're talking. Believe me, as they they capture points.
Well,
I can picture them
good.
now.
If there were people eavesdropping, I'll send the bill. No problem. They can pay for that. Anyway,
That's
well,
great.
I say something that's useful, then I'm very happy that it's useful to whoever heard it. You know,
Yeah.
and that's a big deal.
Hey, look.
If you can use it, then I'm happy.
Thank you.